Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Friday, September 17th, 2021. And our top story today, a national summit for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the financial services industry. Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more are Rosalind Brown of Whippin and Angela Russell of CUNA Mutual. Ladies, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about some really important issues today in your national summit. But Rosalind, I want to start with you, and let's talk about the origins of Whippin, what Whippin is, what it stands for, and we can go from there.
Well, great. Whippin was created in 2009. Women in Pensions Network is what we were actually called at that point in time, and really birthed out of necessity. So as women in the industry, we would often find ourselves at conferences, at larger events, and so much of the overall population of that event were just men. And so coming up with a way to create community and really help and network and help ourselves in the industry so we can expand and grow, that's how Whippin was formed. And so in the last year, we've actually rebranded to just the Whippin acronym. And so what we've been able to do is really expand that. So now we make up over 5,500 women. We have chapters spread across the United States, and we're able to really do a step further in terms of our ability to really promote, to network, to really educate. And that's women of all portions of the industry, the retirement industry, but also at all levels. So whether it's entry level or your senior level and you're trying to take your career that step further, really want to be that network that we can create those resources for those women in the industry.
Angela, we often talk about in the retirement industry diversification of a portfolio. Let's talk about some of the major issues from your perspective with respect to diversity and inclusion within the financial services industry.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you, Jeff. We know that our country is changing and changing rapidly. And if we don't have the products and services within the financial services industry to meet the changing needs of our demographic, folks are going to get left behind. And that we know that historically, folks have been left behind in terms of wealth disparities, income disparities. So having representation and diversity within the workforce of the financial services industry will help create the products and services that we need to help everyone get further ahead.
Thank you for that, Angela. And Rosalind, when you look at the members, let's talk about who makes up the membership. When I say members, not individuals, but companies. Who is sponsoring or this organization? Can you name a few or all organizations?
Definitely. I don't want to get put on the spot to name them all and leave someone out, but we have a number of some of the larger names that you would know in the industry, such as the T. Rowe Prices, the Fidelities, CUNA. Thank you, Angela, your organization as well. But definitely some of the smaller organizations. So some of those maybe 100 to 200 employee type organizations are our sponsors as well. And so we understand that the resources that are going to be available at some of the larger organizations, for example, like the Vanguards, those are going to have massive amounts of resources for women to connect. So maybe they'll have the employee resource groups. Maybe they'll have mentorship programs. At smaller organizations, they may not have those same resources. And so what we want is for every single woman who's working in the industry, regardless if you're at a TPA firm, an advisory firm, a mutual fund company, that you'll have some connectivity to figure out what's going to be your career path. What are some resources? How can you network within the organization? Maybe if you want to make some pivots in your career and so forth, that we can make that connectivity and create a seamless transition through the different steps of your career.
And Angela, wondering if you might just talk a little bit about the commitment of organizations like yours, like other members, to enact change, to include others, and to talk about and to put forth these tenets that are being articulated not only here, but throughout Whippin chapter meetings.
Yeah, I love that question about commitment because we know that executive level buy-in is essential to the work of DEI being effective. And one of the very first things that our CEO, Bob Trunzo, did when he became CEO was add inclusion as a corporate value. So inclusion is one of our key corporate values. And it's not just that it's a corporate value, we are putting resources behind the value in and of itself. So our commitment goes beyond just what's on our website. We have an entire team that's working on inclusion and belonging, that's working on our corporate social responsibility and connecting that to the changing consumer marketplace. And all three of those are essential to meet the changing needs of our workforce and our marketplace. And then for the inclusion and belonging, we have 13 different employee resource groups or affinity groups that receive funding from our organization to do a variety of things to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our workforce, to make sure that they can work up to their fullest potential. And those are just small examples of what commitment looks like.
Yes, and unfortunately we don't have, this is a topic that deserves a lot more time to address these issues. And we're going to get to the National Summit, which I think gets to that in our next segment. But Rosalind, what's it going to take from a time, a human capital, a financial aspect to achieve some of the objectives that we've talked about this morning here in this segment?
So it's going to take, Angela really hit on it. One, a commitment, but two, a recognition top down. And so it really can't simply be employees saying, we want more, we want to be accepted. It's really going to have to be leadership saying, we don't have the culture that we need today, and we need to put resources. That's going to be in terms of people, in terms of money, in terms of actual measurables as well. And so we'll go into that, of course, in the summit itself in terms of some of the small things that companies can put in place. And like I mentioned, some of our sponsors are huge, massive. And so they have 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 employees, and they have a huge team that can come up with some of these initiatives, come up with some of these measurables. But if you don't have that same bandwidth at your organization, we want to be able to provide you the resources that you can come up with at least a baseline of efforts and initiatives to put in place to really come up with an inclusive workforce, one that you can get the most out of your employees, so your employees can really bring their whole selves to work and bring those true diversity of thought to the table, which will also in turn help that diversity of our customer base as well, which is huge. If we can't embrace diversity within the organization, we can't take that into the world and really serve those clients that we plan to serve, helping them to reach their financial goals.
And Angela, this conversation that we're having, one of the main themes this year in retirement and financial services is the concept of ESG and sustainability. And you see that with climate. You see that with a lot of aspects around society. Does this get incorporated into that philosophy? So I guess my question to you is, this seems like a natural, or a statement, I guess, this seems like a natural offshoot of that larger, broader conversation that's taking place about evaluating organizations.
Yeah, so I can tell you what we do at CUNA Mutual Group. So our diversity, equity, and inclusion team includes 3 different components: our workforce inclusion and belonging, our multicultural consumer center of expertise, and our corporate social responsibility. And as a part of our corporate social responsibility, sustainability is a part of that. And so our sustainability work includes looking at our facilities, right? But it also includes looking at how are we a partner with our community organizations all across the nation, and how do we continue to learn about sustainability and how it can inform the rest of what we do. So it's a key component to our overall DEI work.
Yeah, and as I said, we just don't have enough time to devote to this really important topic. Ladies, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. And when we come back, we'll talk about a national summit for diversity, equity, and inclusion. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score, a credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back, and now we're going to talk about the National Summit, and we still have Rosalind Brown of Whippin with us, and joining us is Deidre Boulware of American Century. Rosalind, thanks so much for staying with us, and Deidre, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Rosalind, let's start with you, and we had a great talk in the first segment about Whippin and the key issue around diversity and making sure we have diversity in the financial services industry. But let's talk about what this summit is all about. What are prospective attendees and sponsors going to see at this event?
Well, one of the great things is we have a number of great sponsors. And so when we look at sponsorship across the Whippin network, we have companies that are doing great work in the diversity initiative. And we want to make sure that we're highlighting what they're doing, but also sharing, because we have large sponsors who have 50,000 employees and they have a huge HR team that's focused on diversity. They're doing a number of different efforts. And then we have organizations that are much smaller, and they may not have the resources, although they still have the interest and the desire. So we want to make sure that we're providing tools that gets every employer at a baseline in terms of what's going to create an engaging and an accepting environment for people to come and bring their whole self to work, and then be able to really contribute to the industry, because our clients also reflect our population in terms of employees. And so the best way that we're going to be able to provide those services from a retirement perspective to all those people out there that also want to retire one day is to have a voice from all those different backgrounds as well. And so we're going to make sure that we're addressing a number of different topics from a baseline that every organization should have, so every voice is actually heard as well.
Yeah, and Deidre, when you look at some of the topics and some of the speakers, what can we expect to hear? Rosalind really laid it out very well, establishing that baseline. But in terms of some of the sessions, and we're going to get to the virtual job fair in a few minutes, but what about the topics and speakers?
Sure. So, Jeff, what I would say is we're really expecting to hear about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as it stands today, currently, just from a status perspective for organizations, what's on their minds, right? With George Floyd incidents happening now here almost about a year and a half to 2 years ago, that really initiated many different initiatives across organizations when we think about DEI. But where were they before that? And now where are they going? And what's going to be sustainable? What really is most important to organizations across the industry, particularly financial services? Where does our rubber meet the road, right? Because people are looking for so much from us. Our clients have expectations, corporate sustainability, and all of our environmental, social, and governance is really driving a lot of what we're doing because it is the right thing to do. And then thirdly, I would say, really trying to understand where our employees are, what are their expectations to ensure that we're kind of putting our money where our mouths are, that we are doing the right thing for our organizations in terms of continuing to promote those cultural shifts, continuing to really understand and respect difference and where the transformational changes are going to take place. And then how can we really make sure that all of those voices are included at the table, are heard, and really part of helping organizations to move forward.
Yeah, and Rosalind, I want to come back to you. I mean, Deidre really laid it out very clear in our first segment. It was laid out very clear as well about what the organization stands for. You've got a lot of prominent sponsors really stepping up to support this event. Can you name a few and maybe some of the initiatives, and how do others step up to support the event?
I think when we think about who's doing things, we also see a number of organizations who are putting out corporate statements. But like you said, there are actually organizations that are putting their money out there, and either they're hiring experienced personnel. And so, for example, Kuna had a great conversation with us, and they talked a lot about their corporate investing and how are they making those decisions. And are those decisions all maybe upward stream or downward streaming? So are we just looking at ways that we get people to maybe just out of poverty, or are we actually putting people to the point where they can truly thrive? And I think that's a big difference when we talk about diversity and what we think about helping other organizations. We have a great speaker that's coming from Franklin Covey that's going to talk about unconscious bias. And so we had a great sponsor, Prudential came in and did that sponsorship for us. But I think one of the big things there is when we look at bias, are we actually acknowledging that we all have it? Regardless of if it's good or bad, if you immediately look at something and you say, that's good, that's bad, that's something I want to connect with or I can relate to. I am particularly excited about one because we talk so much about it so often, and that's the imposter syndrome. And so sometimes people get in a role and you think, goodness gracious, are we, am I in a position that I'm not qualified for? But at the end of the day, sometimes you're set up to fail. And so not acknowledging that and making sure that we're putting the structure in. So Deidre Giles from Executive Prep will be highlighting that topic. And I think it helps organizations to say, are you helping people through the ranks? Which it's a bigger difference between, are you just promoting people or do you have a diverse crowd overall? Well, what are you actually doing as you're promoting, training, enabling people to actually be their best selves at work as well? So we have kind of the full gamut from Fidelity, from Emeritus, we have Cap Trust, we have so many great sponsors that are joining us. And then of course, they'll continue to join us on Thursday that afternoon for job fair. So we see organizations, and we definitely see a lot more people making career changes at this point. And a lot of times those changes are more of a culture change. So they're not even leaving organizations simply for pay, but definitely for a different culture. And so knowing which organizations have a culture that you can actually relate to and that you can feel home with, we're going to make sure that those organizations are available, and they'll be interviewing, and we'll be helping people find their new job home. Yeah,
and Deidre, it's kind of the same question for you. I mean, you work for an organization that has really stepped to the plate. What about a roadmap? I mean, are people that are sponsoring this program going to have some type of a roadmap that they can say, look, it's happening over here, it's happening over here. We can follow something similar, and we can share best practices, by the way.
Yeah, Jeff, that's such a great question. I think that that's definitely going to be our ask, right? For us to kind of discuss and be able to share where organizations are going on this journey. What does that look like? What's going to happen within the next year or 2 years? Whether that's going to be increased education and awareness, whether that's going to be continuing to partner with a lot of our corporate partnerships within the community to drive how we're supporting our communities, whether that's going to be going out and really thinking about where do we source, right? Where do we get our talent from? How do we bring in more diverse talent slates? And really, as Rosalind was suggesting, how do we ensure that we are developing our top talent of diverse pools within organizations and historically excluded groups, and ensuring that we're preparing them and creating warm talent pipelines for them to move into these senior level roles or to be board ready, as where so much of the focus is. So understanding what that looks like for different organizations, what those steps will be and how they're planning to get there will be one of the things that will be most beneficial for us to focus on and share collectively, so that hopefully we can support each other as we do through many of the organizations like NICSA or through ICI, and do a lot of the same things and not so often have to recreate the wheel, as long as the information, of course, is public, but making sure that we understand what's happening, with each other, where we're coming together. Because a lot of times we're recruiting from the same places, right? A lot of times we're showing up on the same conferences. So the more that we can come together and share and be strategic around how we can do this as an industry, the more successful that we're going to be overall.
Yeah, I love, sharing information, whether it's building a retirement plan or an organization that has the right culture, the right values. You can learn from each other. And I think it's, in order to move things forward, you have to get there. I guess the last topic I want to talk to you both about, and start with you, Rosalind, this virtual job fair. How exactly will that work? You mentioned a little bit about it, but will there be prospective employers? Will there be opportunities to interview? I know this isn't a virtual event, but how do you see it kind of working out?
So we're all used to the virtual world at this point in time. I think it's no stranger at this point in time through the Zoom type environment, but we'll have all of our employers placed in different rooms. So you'll be able to rotate throughout the rooms. And if you have registered for the event, you can actually see some of the jobs that our employers will have available in advance. That'll give you a chance to have some one-on-one time with these recruiters. Some of our employers are sending multiple recruiters. So it is a great opportunity. We know that some recruiters specialize in one part of the business than another. So you'll have that one-on-one time to chat with them, to share your documentation. So if you want to share your resume and really come able to focus on the jobs that they have available today. So this is not a job fair where we're saying, oh, we'll just chat with them and if something comes available. No, there are jobs available today. So if you are in the market for a change, those change jobs are right there and available for you to be introduced to and move on over into the career that's going to better fit your lifestyle and the culture that you're looking for.
Yeah, and Deidre, just to come over to you, it sounds like a great opportunity for people, as Rosalind said, looking for change. Let me just ask you, what makes for a great candidate, but also a great prospective employer? Because it takes, as they say, it takes two to tango. Maybe more, maybe two or three to tango. I'm not a good tangoer, but it does take multiple people to tango.
Well, for one thing, it's for sure, right? It takes a multiple open mindset, right? To really to be able to make that tango work. Let me start from the place of the employer first. I think that in this market where we have the great resignation underway and where there's also there's a sheer war on talent, right? To be able to really find the talent that is the most qualified and the talent that you need to do a lot of our work, which comes with some certain technical skill sets. We have to be open. We really have to be able to look at resumes and understand what is a person's background, what is their work ethic, get some character out of that, as well as looking at their qualifications, prior experience, which is really important. But if they're like a career changer, is it that the prior experience or the transferable skill from the prior experience? What is really most important? So I do think that for us to really be able to think about how we get the very best talent for what we're needing. Because people right now who are looking for those roles, looking to make changes, they're very diligent, they're hardworking. Most times they have very high learning agility. They can learn quick, they can learn fast, and they can also change and flex as they need to. So I think we do have to be very open and think about how we're looking and evaluating these candidates and go a little bit deeper than the surface, which may be how we have done it more in the past to go very quickly. From a candidate perspective, I think candidates have to be able to sell themselves still very well in this new world. And it's because the world of the employer in terms of being able to go out and find the talent that they need, and with the talent bases being, a bit low on the number of people that you have available right now, for those that are out there, they're going to be showing their best selves, right? So doing the research around the company, making sure that those elevator speeches are very tight. Who are you? What do you have to bring to the table? And why are you the best person for the job, right? What are those kind of top 4 to 5 things that employers will really, really want to know from you that are going to give you the competitive advantage and leg up when it comes to looking for a job with their company? And then I would say the last thing around it is really showing up as being a flexible person, but a person who has, great personality, has a little bit of a sense of humor. Because in this pandemic, the one thing that we've learned is that we all have done a little bit of self-reflection, and we want to see people that are really human, right? We've learned how to have jobs with our children in the background, or interview if the dog's coming in, or whatever that looks like, right? So really being able to show that you can relate to people and be relatable, I think is going to be the thing that gives the candidate the edge up.
Well, ladies, I have to tell you, it sounds really exciting. I want to wish you and Whippin the best for this event. And Rosalind Brown, Deidre Boulware, thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning. And we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thanks, Rosalind. Thanks, Deidre. Great to see you. Thanks for sharing your perspective. That wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, somebody you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. We're back again tomorrow, this time for BRN Weekly. We'll have a very special guest, and we'll take a look at some of our best segments for the week. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.